There are some of us walking this earth who don't quite fit into the lightworker mold. We're not the ones always radiating peace and love. We don't always speak gently. Our energy doesn't always feel like a warm embrace. Sometimes it feels like a storm. Sometimes it disrupts rather than soothes. If you've ever felt like your presence disturbs people more than it comforts them, if you've ever felt like your truth triggers others, even when you're not trying to, you may be something deeper than a light worker. You may be a dark chosen one. I know that term sounds heavy, maybe even dangerous, but it's not about evil. It's not about darkness in the way society has programmed you to fear. It's about depth. It's about shadow. It's about carrying a vibration that wasn't designed to blend in but to disrupt, to unveil, to transform. The dark chosen ones are not here to make people feel good. We're here to make people feel real. We're not here to be accepted. We're here to awaken. And that awakening often begins in discomfort. But here's the part that most don't understand. We didn't choose this path. It chose us. Or rather, our souls chose it before this incarnation. We signed up to carry codes of transformation that are not always pleasant to experience either for ourselves or for others. We carry frequencies that can dismantle illusions just by walking into a room. We speak truths that cut through spiritual fluff, bypassing the surface and going straight into the wound. And because of that, many of us have lived with a sense of isolation, of being misunderstood, even feared. That's not a coincidence. That's a sign you're carrying one of the hidden roles of the dark chosen ones. Now, I want you to listen carefully, because this is the moment where you might begin to remember why you've always felt different. There are 7 hidden roles that dark chosen ones carry. Not everyone carries all 7. Some carry 1. Some carry 2, a few carry many, but all of them are sacred, all of them are necessary, and none of them are comfortable, because these roles are not about spiritual entertainment, they're about soul evolution, yours and everyone you touch. The first role is the disruptor. If this is your role, your energy breaks down systems whether you try to or not. You might notice that institutions, relationships, or environments that are built on control, lies, or ego start to crumble when you enter them. People might accuse you of being too much, too intense, or too honest. But you're not here to be palatable. You're here to shake the foundations. Because only when the false structures fall can truth rise. The disruptor walks into comfort zones and detonates the illusion of safety. And yes, it's painful, but necessary. Because without destruction, there is no rebirth. The second role is the shadow mirror. If you carry this role, people often project their unhealed wounds onto you. You might be treated unfairly, misunderstood, or even scapegoated, not because of who you are, but because of what your energy reflects. You don't trigger people by doing something wrong. You trigger them by showing them parts of themselves they haven't owned. Your presence is like a mirror that reflects back the shadow they've avoided. And rather than face that pain, they aim it at you. Don't take it personally. It's not your fault, and it's not your job to heal them. But it is your purpose to hold the mirror, to remain clear even when others run from their own reflection. The third role is the initiator of endings. This one is perhaps the most painful. If this is your role, you're often the last person someone sees before a major shift. You may be the catalyst for someone leaving a job, ending a relationship, or even awakening from a long spiritual slumber. But here's the hard part. You're rarely thanked for it. You're often blamed for the fallout. People don't realize until much later that your presence was the spark that set their liberation in motion. And in the meantime, you're left holding the weight of being the exit sign they didn't want to see. But remember, endings birth beginnings. You're not a destroyer. You're a portal. Now pause for a second and ask yourself, have you ever been cast out or walked away from something only to watch it fall apart after you left? That's not coincidence. That's signature energy of an initiator. You didn't cause the collapse, you simply revealed the instability that was already there. And that's the paradox of the dark chosen one. We seem to bring chaos, But in truth, we bring clarity. And clarity is the most dangerous force in a world built on illusion. These roles are not glamorous. They're not Instagrammable, but they are real, and they require deep self-awareness. Because if you don't understand your role, you'll internalize the reactions of others. You'll think you're the problem. You'll try to shrink, to soften, to blend in. But dark chosen ones are not meant to blend. We're meant to cut through. And that means carrying our roles with responsibility, not resentment. But let me tell you something vital. Your power becomes dangerous only when you forget your intention. That's why this path demands inner mastery. Not perfection, but presence. Because when your shadow isn't integrated, your roles can turn toxic. The disruptor becomes destructive. The mirror becomes manipulative. The initiator becomes careless. But when you do the inner work, when you face your own wounds, you become the pure vessel for divine disruption. And that's when your purpose activates. So I ask you now, which role are you carrying? And how are you embodying it? Are you using your energy consciously? Or are you still running from it? Because the moment you stop running is the moment everything begins to make sense. Ticheus, the loneliness, the misunderstandings. They weren't punishments. They were preparations. You've been trained by life itself to carry what others cannot. And now it's time to remember why.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
There's a reason your life has never felt normal. A reason why the path you walk seems to be made of fire, broken mirrors, and silence. You've been marked not by society, but by the unseen realms. And what's inside you isn't just energy. It's code. Ancient, interdimensional, soul-level coding that was embedded in your DNA long before you took your first breath in this lifetime. And this code isn't random. It's specific, precise, and highly activated in those we call the dark chosen ones. You see, while the world tends to focus on the bright, the beautiful, and the obviously enlightened, the real alchemy happens in the dark. Not the kind of dark that seeks to harm, but the kind that holds truths too powerful for the surface. The kind of dark that births galaxies. The kind of dark where souls meet their reflection and cannot look away. That is the space you were designed to hold. And whether you know it or not, your energy carries unlocking mechanisms. These aren't spells, charms, or rituals. These are frequent Sylval triggers that activate awakening in others, sometimes instantly, sometimes slowly, but always inevitably. This is the fourth hidden role of the dark chosen ones, the coded carrier. If this is your role, you often find that people change after meeting you. They may not even understand why, but something inside them shifts. They start thinking differently. They question things they never questioned before. Or they spiral into a deep internal confrontation they've been avoiding for years. You don't have to do anything obvious. You don't need to coach, heal, or preach. Just your presence starts the process. That's because your DNA carries dormant frequencies that others have forgotten exist. And when they enter your field, those frequencies interact with theirs. They begin to remember, not always consciously, but energetically. This is why you often feel exhausted around people. Not because you're weak, but because you're transmitting codes constantly. Even when you're silent, even when you're resting. You're like a sacred archive walking through a world that forgot how to read soul language. And that's why you've also been through the fire yourself, because your codes had to be forged, not fabricated. You weren't given this gift. You earned it. Through every betrayal, loss, humiliation, and death of identity, your soul was being refined. And now, as the world begins to unravel, your presence becomes more necessary than ever. But here's what you must understand. Your coding can only activate in others when you stop hiding yourself. As long as you suppress your truth, your frequency remains muffled, and the people who are meant to awaken through you can't fully receive the transmission. That's why the world has pushed you to the edge again and again, not to break you, but to strip you of your masks. Because only when you are raw, real, and unapologetically, does your soul become the key that fits into someone else's locked door. And this brings us to the fifth hidden role, the frequency disturber. You are not just a mirror or a carrier, you are a disruptive frequency in environments that are stagnant or false. You walk into a space and the energy shifts. Old power structures get nervous. Inauthentic people act weird around you. Secrets start surfacing. Hidden dynamics rise to the surface. It's not because you're judging anyone, it's because your vibration doesn't allow deception to rest comfortably. You don't even have to speak. Just being there is enough to make the masks fall. This is why you've often been the problem in groups. Why you've been blamed for disturbing the peace. But that peace was never real, it was performative. It was built on silence, not truth. And your energy simply demands truth. That's not a curse. That's a sacred function. Because without the disturber, stagnation becomes the norm. Without disruption, growth stops. You are not here to maintain comfort. You are here to ignite transformation. And yes, that can be messy. But it is also divinely orchestrated. Now ask yourself something deep. How many times have you blamed yourself for the discomfort you caused, instead of realizing it was your soul doing its job? Because as long as you think you're the problem, you'll try to fix what was never broken. You'll keep shrinking, apologizing, softening your truth. But your truth is the frequency. It's the medicine. And the moment you begin to own it fully, fiercely, without apology, you become a walking signal for awakening. But with that power comes responsibility. Because if your energy is that impactful, you must carry it with awareness. This isn't a game. You're affecting people at the soul level. And that means you need to be honest, clean, and clear with your intention. You don't use your power to control. You don't manipulate. You don't push people into transformation. You offer the code, and then you let go. You trust the soul of the other person to know what to do with it. Because your job isn't to awaken everyone. Your job is to be the activation point, and let the divine do the rest. This is why dark chosen ones often walk alone. Not because they want to, but because their energy requires solitude to remain clear. You're not meant to be constantly surrounded by people. You're meant to recharge in silence, download in solitude, and then emerge when the signal is strong. You don't need the crowd. You are the frequency. And now I ask you, what would happen if you stopped dimming your codes and started trusting in their divine purpose? What would unravel? What would rise? Who would awaken? Because the truth is, they're waiting for you. Not the version of you the world told you to be, but the coded one, the disruptive one, the one who remembers. There are places in this world, both physical and unseen, that exist between dimensions, thresholds, veils, energetic borders where one reality ends and another begins. These are not places for the faint of heart. They are storm centers of transformation, where identities collapse, souls awaken, and illusions die. And here's the truth most will never understand. These gates must be guarded, not with weapons, not with fear, but with presence, with power, with truth. And this is where the sixth hidden role of the dark chosen ones emerges, the gatekeeper of chaos. If you carry this role, you are not here to avoid chaos. You are here to stand inside it. Where others run, you remain. Not because you enjoy suffering, but because you understand the sacredness of disorder. You know that chaos is not the enemy. It is the raw material of rebirth. It is the moment before clarity, the womb before birth, the storm before the silence. And you were designed to stand at that threshold and hold the line. You've probably felt this your whole life. When things fall apart, people come to you, not always kindly. Sometimes with panic, sometimes with blame, but always with a subconscious knowing that you can handle what they cannot. You can sit in the fire. You can navigate the void. You can face the unknown without collapsing. That's not ego. That's assignment. Your soul remembers what others forget. That transformation is not clean. It's wild. It's messy. It's sacred chaos. And someone must stand at the edge and say, "This way leads to truth." But here's the cost. You rarely get to walk through the gate yourself. You're often stationed at the border, guiding others through, while your own evolution happens in quieter, more internal ways. You are not just a guide, you are a guardian. And that means you absorb a lot. You hold space for pain, grief, death, and awakening. Not because you have to, because your energy is built for it. You are the bridge, the translator, the one who speaks both the language of the human and the divine, the one who understands suffering without judgment and light without delusion. This is why your life has likely been filled with extremes, extreme highs, extreme lows, sudden losses, strange dreams, intense initiations. Because in order to guard the threshold, you must know it intimately. You've walked through death portals. You've lost pieces of yourself in past timelines. You've seen things others pretend don't exist. And through it all, you've remained intact, not untouched, but unshaken. That is your power. Not in avoiding the dark, but in becoming sovereign within it. Now, let me ask you something that may unlock a deep memory. Have you ever felt like your presence alone prevents collapse, like you're holding up a reality that others don't even see is falling? That's the work of a gatekeeper. You don't just hold space, you hold structure. Your energy becomes the scaffolding through which others rebuild themselves. And no, you don't get credit for it. In fact, you're often invisible in this role. But that invisibility is part of the magic. Because when you're not seeking recognition, you become pure function. A channel, a guardian, a quiet force that keeps the threshold open for others to walk through. But this power must be protected. Because if you're constantly holding the chaos of others without tending to your own center, you'll burn out. You'll grow bitter. You'll forget your own divinity. That's why solitude is not just a preference, it's a requirement. You need time to recalibrate, time to be held rather than hold, time to remember that while you guard the gate for others, your own evolution is just as sacred, because no one can pour from an empty chalice, not even a gatekeeper. So how do you protect yourself while standing in the storm? You become ritualistic about your energy. You create daily practices that ground you into your body and soul. You stop explaining yourself to those who don't have the range to understand you. You honor the fact that your energy field is not public property, it is holy architecture. You don't let everyone in. You don't let every crisis become your responsibility. You serve from overflow, not depletion, because your presence is already doing more than most people's words ever will. And here's the paradox. The more you protect your energy, the more powerful your presence becomes. You don't have to push. You don't have to convince. You just exist, and the threshold responds. The chaos listens. The storm quiets, because it knows who you are. It remembers your soul's signature. You've been here before, in other realms, in other timelines. You've always stood at the gate, and you always will. But now, it's time to remember that you are not just the tool. You are also the temple. You are not just the process. You are the purpose. You were never meant to be consumed by the chaos. You were meant to command it, not from control, but from clarity. Not from fear, but from sovereignty. So I leave you with this. What would happen if you stopped seeing your chaos as a burden and started recognizing it as your initiation? What would shift if you saw every breakdown not as punishment, but as proof of the gate you're guarding? Because here's the truth. You are not lost. You are stationed, and your post is sacred. Some souls come into this world to comfort, to heal, to soothe. And then there are those who come to confront, who arrive not to give you what you want, but to awaken what you forgot. These souls are not here to play nice. They are not here to make life easier. They are here to make it real. These are the final class of dark chosen ones. The soul challenges those who activate destiny through divine friction. If you carry this role, you already know how hard it is to be misunderstood. You've been called difficult, intense, even confrontational, not because you're unkind, but because your energy refuses to let people stay asleep. You don't allow people to lie to themselves in your presence. You don't tolerate half-truths, spiritual bypassing, or masked identities. Your very existence demands authenticity, and authenticity is terrifying to those who have built their lives on illusion. But here's the deeper truth. You don't challenge people to hurt them. You challenge them to set them free. You carry a sacred fire that burns through pretense. A fire that says, you came here for more. Stop hiding. And sometimes people run from that fire. They demonize it. They paint you as the villain in their story. But what they don't realize is that you were the plot twist their soul requested. You were the divine disruption they prayed for in silence. The moment they asked the universe for growth, you were sent. This role is brutal if you don't understand it, because it often comes with rejection, betrayal, and deep loneliness. You'll lose people. You'll be exiled. You'll be the one who changed the dynamic, even if all you did was speak the truth. You'll be the one blamed for the collapse when all you did was remove the mask. But that's the cost of carrying this frequency. You are a walking initiation, and initiations are never gentle. But here's what makes you powerful beyond measure. You don't need anyone to agree with you. You don't need validation to trust your knowing. You see people not their facade, but their essence. And when you speak, your words hit like lightning. Not because you intend to hurt, but because your truth cuts through lifetimes of avoidance. You say what others are too afraid to say. And in doing so, you activate something ancient in them. A memory, a calling, a destiny. You are the soul who walks up to sleeping giants and says, wake up. You're not who you think you are. And yes, they may hate you for it at first, but they'll never forget you. Because something inside them will be forever changed. That's the legacy of a soul challenger. It's not popularity. It's impact. You leave fingerprints on souls, not just hearts. But with great power comes sacred responsibility. You must remain clean in your intention. Your fire must be rooted in love, not ego. You don't challenge to dominate. You challenge to awaken. And that means you must continually challenge yourself. You must stay accountable, self-aware, and humble. Because if your shadow goes unchecked, your power can turn cruel. But when your shadow is integrated, your presence becomes surgical. You don't waste words. You don't provoke for attention. You deliver truth like medicine, direct, potent, and unforgettable. And here's what makes this final role so necessary in the evolution of human consciousness. Comfort zones are illusions. Growth doesn't happen in still water. It happens in friction. And the soul challenger is the sacred friction that forces destiny to rise. Without you, people would stay stuck in karmic loops. They'd keep repeating lessons they were meant to graduate from lifetimes ago. But your presence breaks the loop. You don't just challenge the person. You challenge their entire timeline. And when that challenge is accepted, fate accelerates. So ask yourself now, who have you unsettled, not out of malice, but out of love? Who has come into your field and walked away different? Who have you broken open not by force, but by truth? These are your soul contracts. They're not always pretty. They're not always mutual. But they are divine. Remember, the soul challenger is not here to be liked. You are here to be remembered. Long after the storm has passed, long after the ego has healed, long after the truth has landed, you are the one they'll call the most painful teacher and the most important one. Because you didn't give them comfort. You gave them a mirror, and in that mirror, they saw their soul for the first time. This is your purpose. Not to be accepted, but to be true. Not to be worshipped, but to be clear. Not to lead with light or dark, but with depth. And in that depth, you don't just survive the world. You reshape it from the inside out. So I leave you with this one final question. If you knew your presence alone could alter the course of someone's soul path, would you still keep hiding? Or would you finally rise into the fire you were born to carry? Because now you remember who you are. And it's time.